the national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of this game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'd ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
WESN.
Hello there, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for being with us as we start a brand new edition of the program and a new week here in TNT, obviously across the world as well, but full of new opportunities, I hope, and only good things. Let's keep our fingers crossed. This morning we're starting with the focus on business and the economy, and it's to do with small and medium enterprises in Trinidad and Tobago. They are spoken about quite often as being not only an engine in terms of development and opportunity, especially when it comes to driving the economy, or the role they play in respect to employment as well, but we are also looking at ways of championing them and helping them in their growth and their development. And one such way is actually business expos. In fact, South Expo really started last week, and throughout the course, one of the themes that emerged from that is how SMEs gain support through expos and the need for more expos across Trinidad and Tobago. But exactly how do they do that? Exactly what role do expos play beyond just helping SMEs get a chance to interact one-on-one with customers? What more is there being offered through expos? I'm joined this morning by a guest who is very much familiar to this program, Mr. Kiran Singh. He is the head of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Good morning, Keaton, and good morning to Trinidad and Tobago. It's always a pleasure to be on your morning show. And of course, to be up at these early hours is always reinvigorating to start the day, Monday morning, bright and fresh.
I was going to say, with all due respect, speak for yourself, Mr. Singh. No, indeed, it's good to see you. And you're always actually very much so. It seems as though you hold on this 6 a.m. slot, so we are grateful for that.
I like this. I like this slot is perfect for me.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Singh, thanks for being with us once more. So, first of all, tell us how the expo in South has been, and really the role that it has played for businesses in San Fernando?
So the expo was launched on Wednesday last, and we were graced with the presence of the MP for San Fernando West and Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Paris Alwari, and of course His Worship the Mayor and Alderman Riyad Hussain to, of course, support the annual Saltex, which continues for 34 years now, continues strong in terms of promoting business, especially more or less south-based, of course. And we heard from the different perspectives of the agencies that were there, lending their support and, of course, promoting the engine of growth through the SME sector, which we are all familiar with. And, of course, what we notice is that businesses that exhibit their products at Saltex, which was at Gulf City Mall this year, which has been some of the home of Saltex for the last several years, giving them the ample space and parking opportunities. The Saltex ended yesterday with a grand car show, which favored the youths, of course, but there were some classic cars as well, which were quite entertaining for the elder folk, and of course brought the interest of the youths to see what kind of cars existed back in the day. But with the cottage industries, which normally doesn't have a showcase for their products because of the small scale that they have, and of course there's no exhibit hall. We don't have a permanent exhibit hall, for instance, for small business enterprises that have like their pepper sauce, their chutneys, wines, chocolates. We have a growing industry in these small products that blossom into big enterprises over time. But of course, it starts at your home, it starts around the corner, and it grows and mushrooms into small and then medium and then corporate and conglomerate businesses. And we have many examples of that throughout the length and breadth of the country. And of course, we support the initiatives of the businesses that continue to promote, advertise their products and services at Gulf City year on year at Kita.
What role, I mean, in your opinion, do you think SMEs play in respect to economic development? I'm not talking about just past, but particularly going forward, given that manufacturing seems to be leading the way in terms of Trinidad and Tobago's revenue streams. In terms of SME and their development, what role do you think they have to play down the line for TNT's economic development?
Well, based on the statistical data that is being released and we see it by the media, of course, is that in terms of non-oil sector contribution to GDP, we lead the way, the SME sector, in terms of employment, and as you said, manufacturing is seen an increase in the output, and they have a very aggressive prediction of continuing growth through the TTME and the export-driven facilities that being offered with Exim Bank to generate further growth and development within the manufacturing sector. And we, of course, we support that because it continues to also sustain employment. The SME sector continues to be the largest generator of employment after the government. It's a huge responsibility for us, and we work, of course, with the public and private sector agencies to ensure the sustainability of employment, as well as how we expand on not only manufacturing, but we can get into the agricultural sector, which we know has been tax-free for incentives for some time now, but we just have to find better ways to market that for the youth, especially to get involved in agro-processing facilities that are now available in South Trinidad.
In respect to exposure, as you would have pointed out, exposure is very, very important indeed. This is the role that expos play. But what are the elements that are really necessary, required at this point in time for the growth and development of SMEs? You always have SMEs emerging, and of course you want them to grow, and that will also allow for the development and growth of other SMEs. So what is necessary? What are those elements that are key to such development?
What we want to see from an SME perspective for our small businesses that are struggling is that the banking sector, for instance, to work closer with us in terms of we have very harsh due diligence processes in the local banks to open a simple thing like a bank account. It frustrates the small entrepreneur who doesn't have much idea in terms of accounting, bookkeeping, what it takes to register a business. And we would want to see the banking sector give us some ease in terms of how we register the accounts, how we go about getting overdraft facilities, how we extend lending facilities, that the security apparatus within the banking framework can be quite tedious to the point where some within our sector will want to not even approach the bank. And that could be quite dangerous if we go towards money lenders, if we go towards other sources of borrowing. But we can remind those of us within our sector that the credit unions offer a quite affordable lending regime that we can take advantage of, because the banks can be quite onerous with their higher interest rates and, of course, charges. And we would want to see our ease of doing business improve. We still somewhat challenged in terms of the digitization of several processes within the government framework in terms of registering a business. But we know the Ministry of Trade is working hard with us with the SEW single electronic window and the business link, and all these things help to fast track the process of getting our business more online in terms of all these processes that we need at a faster pace to keep track in a very competitive world. We're still in a third world type of economy, but given that, we can move forward at a faster pace if we get into the digitization of a lot of the processes that are offered, Peter.
Well, a very intriguing point, a third world economy. But before we even get to that, coming back to the point that you make about the banks, is it that those restrictions or the bank's position put SMEs in a state of fear where they just don't necessarily want to work with banks, and that they rather try alternatives because the banking sector is so restrictive in many ways?
What happens is that some banks or some institutions within the banking framework can be quite rigid in how they look at businesses in the SME sector, because they're small, they don't have a lot of collateral, they don't have security backing. But the experience sometimes of the individuals that are behind the enterprise should speak sometimes louder than the security that is being offered, as opposed to companies that are within the more medium and to large type businesses. We find that the banks will take greater risks with those companies, and the banks, as we saw recently, and we have that historically over time where banks could be under severe financial pressure when they take these huge risks in hundreds of millions of dollars, and they have no choice but to back down. Whereas a small company within the SME sector with a few $1,000s on loan or a mortgage with a couple $100,000, and the bank is on your back to pay. Otherwise, it affects your credit rating. And now we have the incidence of the credit cards, the facility having been reduced, cut in half in most instances with most banks in terms of accessing US dollars. And that continues to plague us within our framework in terms of how do we import goods, how do we pay for certain services. Recently, a well-known hotel chain, as we all know, threatened to withdraw their services if we paid in our own local currency. And that is somewhat of an insult for us, who reside in our country, and we extend facilities to particular conglomerates within our shores, and that is, they treat us with scant regard. And this is, I'm glad that we saw a positive turnaround in terms of some announcements as to how that is going to be dealt with in the coming days. And we look forward to continuing to support enterprises that support us because we still can't pay for shipping, for instance, with our local currency. We have to pay in US dollars. And all these factors, of course, contribute to our SME sector not being as profitable as it could be, given the challenges with the US dollar that we all know is somewhat challenging because of the economy is not as boisterous as it once was.
Mr. Singh, honestly, how are businesses surviving, especially in respect to the forex restrictions and limitations? I know that there was supposed to be, access for SMEs to foreign exchange through the Exim Bank. That facility has not happened, at least to my knowledge, and haven't heard anything further. But generally speaking, how are businesses managing? How are they surviving? Because we understand the forex shortage. Every citizen who has a credit card would experience that. But the thing is, they're still seeing stock on the shelves, so they may not necessarily be aware as to exactly what's taking place in terms of business operations. How has that been?
We have had several discussions with Exim Bank as to the easing up of a system that they have been developing over some time. It's unfortunate there's a delay in the rollout of the implementation of a forex system, particularly tailored for those of us within the SME sector. We understand it will be happening soon, and that it will facilitate greater trade for those of us who depend on the forex for importing some of our goods. Even in the manufacturing sector, we need a lot of value-added inputs to create the final product for export. And this is heavily dependent on a very efficient system of getting US dollars. And we were quite heartened by the Minister of Finance in his recent delivery in Parliament that he is going to look to the oil companies to pay in US dollars. We will hope that that system is efficient and can come on stream sooner than later, so it will inject the much needed US dollars into our local foreign currency stream so that it can be utilized to generate further business, create greater retail activity, and of course going up the chain, the supply chain of wholesale, distribution, retail, and everything that goes with this line to ensure that consumerism increases. And of course it would hold fast to the level of economic growth that has been predicted by several international agencies, that our economy should see some positive growth for this year and next year.
Well, one of the things that we've spoken about quite often, and it was addressed recently too, in the budget by the Minister of Finance, is the need for more export markets to be opening up for Trinidad and Tobago, and the need for more exportable products in order for us to gain export capital. That being said, we're speaking about business expos. We start off by speaking about business expos, and you spoke about the exposure that is needed. Do you think that TNT actually needs to have, with our need and want to have greater exposure to international markets, that international business expos are something that we possibly need to take a look at getting more and more involved in, rather than just local business expos?
Of course, that's a very good point, Peter. As we are also a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries, and being part of that organization, the service industry creates significant employment in the country. It has huge potential for net foreign exchange in the marine services sector, the yachties. In San Fernando, we have our waterfront that is being developed, which we've spoken about on the show previously, and that is continuing to be expanded as we speak. And that will be the second hub for the marine services to expand in the Southwest Peninsula, bring additional yachties to San Fernando. It was quite recent, unfortunate natural disaster that happened up the islands with the hurricane that passed through. And the yachties up there came down in droves to benefit from our safe shores on the west side of this country for safe harbor, because we have that natural ability to prevent us from natural destruction by the hurricanes that pass us annually. And if this can be exploited, we can develop that further. We can have such a serious stream of foreign exchange coming into our country. But again, we just need to fast track the digitalization of the processes that to register these yachties that come, to make it more efficient, more faster, and they would be happier. The word will continue to spread that Trinidad and Tobago has safe harbor for these guys that come to our shores. And of course, it generates additional tourism, which of course is a net foreign exchange earner. And of course, as we approach the busy Christmas shopping periods, but beyond that, the carnival period, we should be preparing for the influx of visitors via cruise ships, the airlines. Tobago the airport is almost completely upgraded to facilitate additional arrivals. And of course, Trinidad is keeping abreast with that. And we would want to see that they are well taken care of coming up to 2025.
Well, you mentioned the yachting industry and the yachting sector. Hopefully later this morning we're going to have a conversation on that as well. But the hurricane season, it's obviously seasonal, that time of the year. And that is when you see a lot of potential in respect to a lot of sailors and boats heading to Trinidad because of how sheltered we are. But it's something, it needs to be something that's marketed beyond just being for the hurricane season, of course. And that drives me to my point in respect to business expos in TNT. They also seem to be seasonal, where it often happens between now and the Christmas period when you have the most exposure through these business expos. Does that need to also be broken, that entire notion that business expos should only be seasonal, that this is something that should be encouraged throughout the entire year? Commerce doesn't just stop when Christmas is over, but of course there needs to be continued drives, continued pushes for these businesses to have that relationship with customers throughout TNT.
We have, Keaton, a couple of centers throughout Trinidad and to a limited extent in Tobago. What we can do is we have a very hectic carnival season that comes up, and we have pre-carnival events and post-carnival events. What we should be looking at is developing, apart from a carnival museum, some sort of expo that generates excitement and interest into the level of costume design that has transpired over the years from the history of carnival in our country, of course. And that has been exported. We now export carnival, or we have been exporting carnival to Miami, London, and up the islands in terms of the soca artists that go as well, apart from the costume design, the DJs, the music that goes with it. So we are somehow exporting carnival unofficially, and we should look to rebrand the carnival product in a way that it maximizes the net foreign exchange potential that it can be derived through having shows, and invite international investors, invite international business people, even those who wish to just engage in the entertainment and euphoria of the carnival season, to come and see what this whole carnival product is about, that we talk about as the greatest show on earth, and Trinidad and Tobago produces that on a yearly basis. Let's invite people to see, apart from the probably 2 weeks of activities, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month of activities that we have, and the fêtes and so on, but also come and see in a fixed framework, under very safe conditions, in an environment, in a one location where we see the history of carnival, the development of costumes over the years, how music has transitioned, how our soca artists have gotten to New York, France, and continues to be ambassadors, unofficial ambassadors for Trinidad and Tobago, spreading the word. And let's develop a public-private sector partnership and arrangement where we showcase Trinidad and Tobago on a carnival level. PAN was recently, just a couple of months ago this year, announced as the national instrument of this country, the only musical invention of the 20th century. We should be promoting that on a larger scale to showcase that Trinidad and Tobago has a lot of potential. We should be have more factories that manufacture pan for export. Not only play pan for the carnival season, but pan should be played throughout the year. We have a couple youths now who have taken the pan on their, literally around their necks, and a lot of new shows are developed and fetes that happen over the years. We see pan being more inculcated more and more into the fete atmosphere where it once was so many years ago. Even for carnival, the pan was somewhat dying. We need to reinvigorate that. We know Pan Trinbago recently had their elections and so on. That should breathe some new life into how they promote Pan, and of course Panorama, the annual Panorama Festival every year. And let's bring our tourists, let's show them what we have to showcase for us as well, Peter.
But Mr. Singh, you realize you're touching on a point there that suggests that we have focused so much on cultural tourism. We need to start exploiting business tourism as well.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So in that regard, do you think that, I mean, what is it going to take to start investing in business tourism? It's not just going to happen overnight. It's not just going to say, hey, listen, come to TNT and do business with us. I mean, if you are speaking about the difficulties, even with SMEs and banking, you know, certain limitations there that might put off people. So if we are focusing now on business tourism, as we should be, I agree with you. It is a market that should be very much exploited. Is that something that's going to be very easy to start? Is it? I mean, we focus so much on cultural tourism. How do we now shift to business tourism?
Well, business tourism is happening, but unfortunately, not on a scale that we would like to see it happening. And the government has announced that we really need to be careful for the next year or two as the economy improves, as we develop and monetize the offshore gas deal and monetize certain assets within the energy sector. While that is happening, we should take advantage now. The opportunity is now for us as business persons to exploit this opening that we have, where we can entice foreign investors, entice regional business persons to come to our shores to see what we have to offer. And of course, work with the government has been working to how to promote Trinidad and Tobago on a more positive level. We have the Ministry of Digitalization, which has to continue to be aggressive in getting our processes. The ease of doing business has to improve and showcase to the world that we are open for business. We are ready to do business. It is that we have a safe, clean environment. We have so many opportunities for persons to come to our shores and benefit from what we offer. And let's start now. We don't have to wait until next year. We don't have to wait for a 10-year plan or 30-year plan. We already have the plans. Let's just exploit and implement the plans and ideas that we have. We have many. We already have so many working relationships with the government in terms of how we do trade. We have met so many trade missions. The government, through the Ministry of Trade, recently went on a trade mission to Canada, and with TTMA, and they continue to do their own missions very often. We have missions going to Guyana, even the smaller countries going up the Caribbean chain. And we should also be looking to take advantage of these so many missions that the smaller entrepreneurs may not be aware of or feel they don't have the confidence to get into it. But we are investing in them through the San Fernando Chamber of Commerce and encouraging them to partake in the trade missions that go to different parts of the world, and let us show what we have to offer to the world in terms of products and services that we offer that are competitive on an international scale, as opposed to just the local arts and craft that we offer on the streets of the cities of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, exactly. You know, it's not just for Trinidad and Tobago, it's for the entire world, and I'm glad that you've driven over that point. Mr. Singh, it's always a pleasure having you on AM Prime. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, as always, and hope you enjoyed the 6 a.m. shift. We'll speak again very soon.
Thank you as always, Kitan, and of course, Trinidad and Tobago, be safe out there.
All the best, sir. Take care. Keep well. Ladies and gentlemen, the potential exists. The potential is there. Let's just exploit it. In respect to SMEs, as Mr. Singh pointed out, they continue to be the second largest employer after the government of Trinidad and Tobago. They're very important in respect to economic development. But we need to foster that presence. Business expos are certainly one way, but it's not just domestic business expos or seasonal business expos. Of course, it's international as well, because of the potential, the sheer potential that exists. Simple little things like mental flakes, those products actually are really, you would be surprised how people throughout the entire world go for that. But another little product, not necessarily from an SME, but just to point out the potential that exists. In TNT, our water crackers, Crips, his water crackers are renowned throughout. I know British people like that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. We will return shortly as we continue with AM. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. So we're focusing on business and the economy this morning. Action last week, Wednesday, by workers of the port over concerns of health and safety and outstanding wage negotiations led to limited operations. Now, that happened for 2 straight days. That seems to have quelled down, as all indications suggest that port operations have returned to a sense of normalcy. But Mr. Michael Anisette, who is speaking on behalf of the workers, actually mentioned that these are 2 years of unbroken promises, and he's going to speak about that a bit further this morning as I welcome the General Secretary of the National Trade Union Centre. Mr. Anisette, good morning. Good to see you on the program.
Pleasant morning to you and the listening public. Let me express my thanks for affording me the opportunity as the President General of Cement and Waterfront Workers Trade Union to put into the public domain the issues, and I must say also the business community. It is our intention, and the letters have been drafted to write to the various business community to engage them in some kind of dialogue so there can be a better appreciation of the issues affecting the port and how we can partner or collaborate with the business community to realize the port's potential. Having said that, there are several issues, and is the issue which I want to speak to in particular is the issue of bad faith negotiations. What do I mean by that? There are several issues where we would have engaged management in discussions for both Tobago and the Port of Spain. And while there are agreements that parties at our level will reach, there is a lack of implementation or an implementation deficit mentality that seems to be pervading the minds of the management. And this is breeding a level of frustration among the workforce, and quite rightly so. Because when parties at our level, which is the acting CEO and senior management and the president and his team, sits with management, be it in Tobago, be it in Trinidad, and there are resolutions, one expects that those agreements will be honored and implemented within alacrity and with the respect that such agreement needs to be implemented. I will give you 2 examples. In Tobago, we successfully argued a dismissal of a young lady. And for the last 2 weeks, we have been advised, going in 3 now, that the young lady will be reinstated. And to date, nothing has happened. We have successfully engaged the management in a unilateral decision that the management made when they determined on their own, which is not part of our collective agreement, that a worker must have 5 passes in order for that worker to act in a higher position, notwithstanding the fact that that worker would have worked on the port 20 years, and the worker will have what I would want to call institutionalized knowledge. 1, that is Tobago, and there are several other issues where we have the management team, and in particularly the HR personnel there seems to be a law unto themselves. And there is this, what I will want to call arrogance, when they call workers, telling workers that they don't have a right to bring the union. I want to talk to you, and I'm not going to talk to you if the union is present. So those are some of the issues in Tobago, and obviously the wages will be affecting Tobago, given the fact that their cost of living is much higher than that of Trinidad and Tobago. So let me back now into what is happening in the Port of Spain. While the Cement and Waterfront Workers Trade Union is committed, and let me make that point there, to working with the management, to collaborate with the management, to partner with the management and the board in order, as I continue to say, to see the port materialize their potentials. The question of balance cannot be a one-sided issue. The union cannot reach out and want to work and have demonstrated by signing a collective agreement under the Minister Cadiz for 2014 to 2017 in September, September, and when the new government came into power, they refused to implement that agreement. And that agreement speaks to international best practices in order to put the port on a platform that will be able to compete with the Jamaicans and the Panamanians who, like the Port of Spain, is not trying, but the port is trying to build a transshipment hub. So we recognized the need for us to put best international practice. And we had what I want to call a concessionary collective agreement where we give up several issues to bring it in line with modern international port practices. And coming out of that, there was a 12% agreement. And may I add, the port as the Port of Spain and the management and the board hired a consultant in order to negotiate these fundamental principles with the union so the port can have an economic lifeline. And to date, workers are still waiting for the implementation of these agreements. But more important, yeah, go on.
No, I'm curious to know, because you spoke about international best practices and these principles. What are those best practices and principles that they speak of from this agreement spanning since 2014?
All right, let me speak. One, the reduction of gang sizes. All right. Two, the issue of working 5 and 7, meaning that any working day in 5 and 7 is a normal working day. As I speak to you, the port is the only port based on global practices, work Saturday, Sunday, and public holidays, and pay, right, the overtime rates, which obviously create problems. And as I speak to you, because that is an international best practice, the shipping lines are not paying the overtime rates that you work on those days, and therefore the port has to assume and consume those costs, which interferes with the port bottom line. And we sat down and we said, listen, we recognize that and we agreed to implement that. The issue of productivity levels. How do we train our workers in order to meet the best practice for productivity levels? If you know, the question of the dwell time, the question of the turnover of vessels, the questions of productivity and how you address your logistic chain in order for the port to compete, because we are competing with Jamaica, who has grown the transshipment trade, and Panama, who has grown the transshipment trade. But we are not putting in place those kinds of best practices that is required for us to make the port attractive as a transshipment hub. And the port can be a transshipment hub, and the union is quite aware of that. And we determined that we'll partner with the government to ensure that those realities become a reality. And it's not just talking, but implementing issues.
No,
so then,
I myself want to be educated, just like every other person watching.
yes.
I'm just, curious to know, who deems this as international best practice?
All right, well, because you remember that the shipping fraternity is a global fraternity. There are several international company shipping lines and agents who handle vessels, who run ports, who own ships. And therefore, there's a benchmark that is established in the context of gang sizes. So if I have to compete with Jamaica, If I have to compete with Germany globally, if I have to compete with the United States, which I will address just now, how we do business logistically, how we do business in terms of productivity, how we do business in terms of gang sizes, how we do business in terms of how long a vessel takes to discharge and load its cargo, how long a vessel takes to stay in its birthplace, because a vessel makes money on the sea. It doesn't make money when it is tied up unduly in the port. And therefore, there is this metric that is used internationally in terms of how many containers you are required to handle per hour. And it's not specific, it's specific to a global phenomena and a global reality. So that when we talk about best practice, we are talking about the practices that the owners of vessels, right, the shipping lines, right, the agents, even the business community expects that a port will be able to perform and carry on seamlessly. So when we talk about best practice, we have to align ourselves to those practices that is practiced in other ports, because we are in effect competing with other ports for business.
Now, in respect to the issues of which the workers walked off the job from, which included health and safety issues and issues over wage negotiations, workers have returned to work. Port operations seems to have resumed a sense of normalcy, although the definition of normalcy here is not entirely clear. Did management actually speak or communicate to the union, the representative union, and were any promises made, or was anything presented, or any incentives given to workers for them to stop such demonstrations and return to work?
As I speak to you today, the union have not received a formal request from the board or the management arising out of what happened over the 2 days. The workers consciously took a decision that, given the sensitivity of the port operations, all right, and what it means to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, and who suffers when there is a delay, they took a conscious decision
Mr. Hannes, are you with us? Okay, well, we seem to have lost
that they will go back prompting. Are you hearing me?
We lost you there for a moment, Mr. Hannes. If you would just repeat what you were.
I do apologize. All right. So then, as I said, the port is a critical cog in any economy. Check it out internationally. If your port is inefficient or not efficient, if there's labor strife, if there's no good governance or proper management or operational management and logistics, your ports suffer. And as a consequence of that, the consumers pay a healthy increase in prices, and the business community suffer. And therefore, there should be a level of what I will want to call laser focus on port operations, so that collaboration between the stakeholders must become a reality. And when I say the stakeholders, it is also inclusive of customs and other government entities. As I speak to you, it takes about 13 different stops in order for you to clear cargo on the port, which is onerous, which is demanding. And we are saying in the union that, listen, for us to survive, we need to get into the best practice, the one-shop area where you can go and get things going. We need to automate. We need to use the digital skills and modernize the port in order for us to compete. And that might sound weird that a union is saying that, but I have the privilege of being a representative of the International Transport Federation. And as a consequence of that, I have been exposed to a lot of international best practice and have been involved in discussions at the highest level with international shipping companies who meet and treat with the ITF, who is the global federation that represents dockers, seafarers, fishermen, airline pilots, and I could road transport, I could go on and on.
So Mr. Ansett, let me ask you, if there's been no official communication, or workers did not necessarily receive any incentives, not that I encourage these demonstrations, not that I'm happy with disruptions, but what led workers to actually returning to work and continuing operations if they're still unsatisfied?
No, well then, you see, that demonstrates the commitment of dock workers. Unlike what you may hear in the press or people say, I can guarantee you, just on health and safety issues, right? The port can stop every day. I can guarantee you I could go on the port now, and I could stop the work on the port now, because one of the international, again, and I like to use it, best practices, is that a worker has the unfettered right to stop work as long as his life and limbs are in danger, and if the environment in which he is asked to work in is not suited and not safe. And that's an international practice. And if you read the OSHA Act speaks to that too, and the OSHA Act also says it is the management responsibility to provide a safe and clean working environment for workers, which I must say we are walking slowly to reaching that standard and that level. But that is not the behavior of port workers. And port workers are being taken for granted. And there comes a time, like every other thing, there's a saying that pressure does burst pipe, that the pipe is going to burst, because workers are feeling the crunch in Tobago, as I said, because of the cost of living, and in Port of Spain. When you are asking workers who are frontline workers who were there for COVID-19, you are asking them to work on 2012 salaries in 2024. And workers have been pleading and making calls for the implementation of the 12% concessionary bargain, a memorandum of agreement that we sign off. And let me make this point for you, because as you say, this is an exchange of ideas. The general public must understand that the Port Authority generates sufficient revenues, and they have always paid the wages, overtime, and salaries of the workers from the revenue that they generate. In other words, the Port Authority is not a drain on the treasury. And one must ask themselves the question, if that is a reality, what is the insistence of this government in not implementing an agreement that was reached? Is it because it was UNC who did it? And I am saying, as a president and as a citizen, when a past government enter into a relationship with the next government and the new government comes into power, they have to honor it. Why it is that there is this resistance and continued resistance by the government to give port workers their dues, which was legally negotiated with the management and acquiesced to and signed off between the union and the management team, to the extent that the minister at that time was part of that signing ceremony. So I want the public to understand this has nothing to do with no 4% issue, because we had an agreement that was negotiated in good faith And therefore there must be recognition, there must be acceptance, and you cannot, as a government, just come up one morning and say we're not paying that to port workers, and in late 2023 tell the management to offer the port workers 4% over 6 years when we have a signed agreement for 12%, a concessionary agreement for a 3-year period.
Is that 12% agreement? Again, I myself am being educated. Is that legally binding? Is that something that someone has to adhere to?
Although yes, it is. It is because of the fact that collective bargaining, based on the ILO convention, is between the employer and the union. And if the union agrees with that agreement and the management and the minister at that time, who was Minister Cadiz, acquiescing to the agreement, on what basis does the government have to come now and say do not implement it and the agreement was not legal when they wasn't in office, when the agreement was negotiated? I mean, it is not rocket science. It is basic fundamental principles of good industrial relation practice. All right, and I want to make the point that this negotiation wasn't the normal negotiation. It was a concessionary negotiation where we give up several issues. Because I speak to you, 65% of wages and salaries goes into overtime. And we agreed to eliminate that. So that money would have gone back into the coffers of the Port Authority and give them more money for investment and infrastructure development. That is how you do business. But for some strange reason, as I speak to you, this government seems not to understand that. As I speak to you, the government haven't dredged the port as they're supposed to do to allow for the post-Panamax vessels and the bigger vessels to come into Trinidad and Tobago. The government have failed over extended period of time when money wasn't a problem, as was said, to do the kind of infrastructure development that is required in a port in order to make it competitive. And those are some of the issues that we want to talk about.
If this negotiation, though, is legally binding, why doesn't the union seek some sort of legal reprieve? Is there any avenues for that?
No, well, we are strategizing, and let me put in the public domain that through the National Trade Union Center, we did engage Minister Imbert, and there was a commitment by Minister Imbert that he will address our issues separately. At one point, I even intimated to the minister, if the back pay is a problem which the government has to fund, only the back pay, we are prepared to sit down and negotiate creative and innovative measures to address the outstanding back pay. But if you do not agree and implement the wage increase, because that is what we agreed to implement it, right? And stop the hemorrhage so that we can sit down and discuss the mechanism, creative and innovative measures that we can use in order to address the back pay. One of the proposals that I put on the table, and the minister say, are you sure? Are you talking for Amnatuka? Say no. This proposal is in respect to the Port Authority, where that if a worker, e.g., back pay is $80,000, and he doesn't have a government house, because we know what are the prices of houses in the private sector rather. Ordinary dock worker, no ordinary worker can go to any private housing development and pay those monies. We suggested that you take that money, right, and put it towards the workers owning a house. That was one of our suggestions, so that the question of the cash right, doesn't arise. You know, and one must understand all the efforts that we would have made as the union and as workers to get our just due. But it appears that there is a concerted and deliberate effort to undermine, right, the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Trade Union, and by extension, the armed workers, by engaging in that kinds of issues that is not conducive to what I will call the environment that is required, which is labor peace, right? And labor satisfaction and workers' satisfaction to take us to the next point that we have to go if we are to survive as a port in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Mr. Anisette, listen, I want to thank you for joining us. We've gone a bit over time, but in respect to clarity, I hope there's clarity, further clarity to the situation in time to come, and hopefully limited disruptions to the operations at the port. But now, wishing you all the very best, and we await to hear further as per this situation. Thank you very much for your time.
The pleasure is mine, and thank you for the opportunity. And as I always say, give thanks to the Most High and our ancestors, because we need to search the God within us in order for us as Trinidadians and Tobagonians to address the myriad of problems that we have in our country, and the major one, which is crime, that is a people's issue as opposed to a government issue. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for that message indeed. Say all the very best to you. Take care.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on the program. We will return shortly. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
wanna-
to me.
respond
Respond to
to
me
you?
how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward and our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
A small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning as we are getting to the final lap of AM Prime. So there are a couple of stories that have made headlines in recent times. The first major story, actually, because we get to the crickets in a bit, the first major story was actually spoken of, hinted at by the first guest on AM Prime this morning, Mr. Kiran Singh, about a hotel chain issuing a social media release stating that how they are, or they were, going cashless and accepting international credit cards, or the impression was they were accepting only international credit cards. In other words, only foreign exchange and not TT dollars. Now, that hotel is Hyatt Regency Trinidad. It's not a locally owned or operated hotel. Of course, it is an international brand. But of course, it caused a lot of headlines because not only is there a forex shortage in Trinidad and Tobago, but this entire conversation about a society going cashless is also frustrating some. Mr. Singh pointed out the issues with the banking sector, or people having a certain level of fear of doing business with the banks. And so you are forcing people into a situation, you're not giving them choice at all, you're forcing them into a situation in which many people simply feel uncomfortable with. Now, the reason why this also gathered a lot of headlines, coming back to that point about foreign exchange, is TNT is facing a forex crisis. Now, the Minister of Finance might not want to use that word, and people might actually hold back on saying that we're in a crisis, but the situation that is being experienced, not just by businesses, but by citizens, ordinary holders of credit cards, is incredible. When credit card limits have been slashed and are constantly being slashed every 6 months, people are, of course, bracing themselves. But apart from the forex shortage, what is happening too is that it also limits who can utilize Hyatt Regency Hotel as an option in terms of staying overnight somewhere or booking a room for a day, whatever the case may be. It just limits who is able to actually be able to stay and use the hotel's facilities. Now, that may not necessarily seem like a big problem, but an international hotel operating in Trinidad and Tobago, on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago, not accepting TT dollars, was a huge hiccup on the part of the chain. Now, I will tell you, and you are aware of this, you hopefully are aware of this, that hotel, Hyatt Regency, has issued a release. They deleted that post, then they said it was premature with misinformation. So this morning, I have to tell you that Hyatt has deleted that post, misinformation. So I'm not here to spread any misinformation. I'm just reporting on what initially transpired. And Hyatt says that operations continue as is normal with no changes expected anytime soon. But I'm also curious to know what would have led to that post being prematurely released. They said it was misinformation. They didn't clarify exactly what the misinformation was, but they did state it was premature, which suggests that it is something that is being considered, and it is something that will be implemented soon. We wait here from Hyatt's management in relation to that. But why only accept foreign exchange and not CT dollars in the country that you're operating? Well, it's simple. It's one way to gather more foreign exchange. In respect, is it that Hyatt will soon having to be paid government in any form or fashion through US dollars only? I don't know. But then apart from that, gaining more foreign exchange, it also speaks to the value of the TT dollar. Yeah. The value, the actual value of the currency, and I'm not talking about when it comes to trading, I'm not talking about when it comes to foreign exchange. The mere fact is, companies do not see the TT dollar being as something as valuable. A lot of companies would actually rather get their hands on Guyanese dollars. Nothing is wrong with that. The Guyanese economy is booming, and I understand that. But that's just to show you how far TNT has fallen. Also, this thing with the cashless society, it is frustrating. The government is not necessarily giving people options. I'll give you one example of why a cashless society could be faulty if systems are not in place first. Friday night passed, which would have been the 4th of October. First Friday night of a new month, so month end, people have gotten paid, people are going out. I went to several business establishments, and none of their links machines were working on Friday nights. I don't know if this was a nationwide thing. I actually didn't even bother to ask, and I didn't get anything or any reports of such. But several of their links machines were not operating. So immediately, obviously, if you had to purchase any service or product, you had to pay in cash. But that is something that we've grown familiar with, by the way. Oftentimes, I have gone to businesses, even major supermarket chains, and their cashless options or machines are not operating. They're not working. Many times I had to put back my products because at that point in time, speaking about cashless, trying not to carry cash on me, but I wasn't able to purchase any of the services or products. So these are things that need to be worked on. We're pushing for a cashless society. You're stating that 85% of Trinidad has access to internet. Access does not mean that they have internet within their homes. Access does not mean that they have mobile data. Access could simply suggest that I have an internet cafe down the street and that's where I'm going to go to conduct business online. I'm going to go to an internet cafe to open up my bank account online and do online banking. No, that's not something that is safe. I'm told that's not best practice. I like that term, by the way, best practice. But I'm stressing on that point because we keep speaking about cashless society. 85% of the nation have access to internet. Again, stress on that word. And it's unreliable. So, you see, this entire thing that transpired with Hyatt is a headache. Not only does it speak to our situation in respect to the value of the TT dollar, or how businesses view the TT dollar as their value, international businesses at least, but it also speaks to the fact that, hold on, we're still forging ahead with this cashless society thing. Again, there are pros and cons to everything that you do, but at this point, one might argue the cons outweigh the pros. Not everybody wants to be banked, and by the way, the more people that are banked, it's probably more taxation on the part of the government. So that may be something as well. Cash flow, of course, everything will be now checked, everything will now be balanced. It's more taxes for the government and less leakage in respect to taxation. All those things you have to bear in mind. So seriously, to the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, your intentions may be well when you're speaking about a cashless society, but at this point in time, examining the pros and the cons, be very, very careful. People in Trinidad and Tobago still keep cash under their mattress, not that I think it's a good thing, but it suggests about their fearfulness of doing work with the bank. That is not a good thing. People are resistant to doing such. Banking fees are incredibly high. And I swear the information that they need in order to just open a bank account is absolutely ridiculous. They're asking for information that you may not even know. So, ladies and gentlemen, we focus on that issue going forward, and, well, we await to hear if anything further happens. Now, getting to some good news. I'm speaking about CPL T20 that concluded last night with the finals held at Providence Stadium in Guyana. It was St. Lucia Kings versus the Guyana Amazon Warriors. The Guyana Amazon Warriors again making it into the finals for a consecutive second year. But it didn't work out in their favor. According to one headline in a local newspaper this morning, lights out for the Guyana Amazon Warriors, of course in reference to what happened last week. I think it was Tuesday, between the Trinbago Knight Riders and the Guyana, the Barbados Royals, actually. That match there, that was the eliminator game, of course. Still a lot of conversation surrounding that. And even following that, we heard that Guyana will be hosting the 2025 finals. Whatever. I'm refraining from commenting on that. I'm glad for Barbados actually hosting the 2026 finals. That's their first CPL finals, and I was wondering when that was going to happen anyway. I think every nation should get the opportunity to host the CPL finals, but if we're talking about marketing here, they're also going to look at the stadiums, which will also get the most in respect to seating capacity and people actually attending those games. So the largest attendance trumps. Anyway, putting all that aside, last night was very, it was a very tight game. St. Lucia Kings won the toss and sent Guyana into bat, as was expected when you're playing at Providence. Remember, teams tend to bowl first if they win the toss, simply because the dew factor coming in later to the game and the purchase on the pitch in respect to spin, all those things are in consideration. St. Lucia sent Guyana in. St. Lucia, Guyana really got off to a terrible start with their opening batsman, Ramnul Gurbaz, actually hitting a shot directly to Faf du Plessis of carry pair. That was a wicket that went down, and then it just continued to decline from there, with wickets falling consecutively. The second wicket to go, of course, was that of Sheikh Hoop, who at one point in time was trying to lead a charge, didn't really get anywhere, and then it came down to this Dwayne Pretorius, of course, and Romario Shepherd. They are the ones who put on, one would say, brought some sort of respect to the total. In the end, they made 138 for 9 of their allotted 20 overs. And well done for Romario Shepherd and Dwayne Pretorius, who had a 50-plus partnership in order to put on that particular score. So really kudos to them. Actually, it wasn't a 50-plus partnership. My mistake. It was 35-plus from 17 balls. So that worked out well there. But St. Lucia Kings were sensitive. At that point in time, St. Lucia Kings would have felt more confident. They would have felt they had the upper hand in the game. And as they started, their batting started off a bit slow. Of course, between the most successful opening pair in CPL T20 2024, Johnson Charles and Faf du Plessis. Johnson Charles was the first to go after playing a wide delivery from Romario Shepherd onto his wicket, and then again it just seemed to tumble there. The St. Lucia Kings were in a very, very difficult position with 4 wickets down. I think they needed 70-something runs from the last 6 overs, and things weren't going good. Aaron Jones and Roston Chase actually came out. They were the pair in the middle. Roston Chase got LBW. He reviewed. It was given not out after the reviewed. Same thing with Aaron Jones. He was LBW, given not out after it was reviewed. It seemed very shaky. And to be honest with you, Ghana was the team at that point. The whole stadium was in a row because they thought they were heading to victory, until it seems as though a message from the coach of the St. Lucia Kings, Darren Sammy, came out to the middle. I don't know what that message entirely was, but Aaron Jones just seemed to click, and it was the over of Moeen Ali, who has been so good with the ball for the Guyana Amazon Warriors since coming into the team in the half of the season. They exploded. He went for 20 runs in that over. Of course, Roston Chase getting into the mix as well. Roston Chase being named player of the match at the end of the game. And then Dwayne Pretorius bowled the next over, and Aaron Jones just had fun against Dwayne Pretorius as well, hitting him all over the pitch for boundaries. In the end, a tight game came down to a great victory to St. Lucia Kings, who have won their first CPL T20 title, the 4th time that they're playing in the finals. In 2022 was the that time that they played in the finals again against it was St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots. St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots trumping there, of course. And then the last time that TKR won the title, which would have been in 2020, they played TKR as well in that finals, right? Here in Trinidad and Tobago at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. Of course, TKR trumping. But kudos to the St. Lucia Kings, who won their first CPL T20 title. And really an excellent game in the end. It really seems to be St. Lucia's year. They're celebrating in respect to sports. And honestly speaking, very, very happy for them after the excellent cricket that they played throughout the tournament. And of course, throughout the years, having made it to the finals on previous occasions and not winning, certainly very much happy for them. So that's the end of CPL T20 2024, concluded with a very invigorating game. And we look forward to what's to come from CPL in 2025. Finals being played in Guyana. Putting that aside, I really hope that CPL focuses on their umpiring. They need to do some introspection. They need to review all that is in place, because even the umpiring last night was very, very poor. And throughout the tournament, the umpiring hasn't been that great. There needs to be a review of the umpiring by CPL, whether it be the umpires themselves or there just needs to be some introspection there, because going forward, CPL can lose a lot of credibility if this continues. And I'm not speaking about one particular game, I'm speaking about generally throughout the tournament. There needs to be some improvement there. So we hope that happens heading into 2025. And of course, we look forward to TKR coming back stronger and better. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime. Thank you very much to my guests for joining me on the program this morning. And thank you very much, of course, to my team in studio, Ryan Gomez-Burke and Mile Wood, for their hard work and dedication in ensuring that AM Prime goes live. To Naomi McNish, who produces AM Prime, thank you very much to her for her hard work. And ladies and gentlemen, to you, the viewer, I'm wishing you a good day ahead, a productive one, a safe one. And I'm Keaton Shaw reminding you, today is a good day to have a good day. I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to